One cry shattered years of silence. The words echoed through the stone walls of the orphanage like an unexpected thunderclap on a sunny day. Sultan Rashid Al-Mansour, accustomed to maintaining composure in any circumstance, felt the world stop around him. His daughter Amira, barely 8 years old, had let go of his hand and was running desperately towards a boy of about 10, who stood in the line of orphans, his eyes wide and tears beginning to well up.
"Dad, that's my brother!"
Amira cried again, her voice breaking into a heartbreaking sob.
"It's Karim! It's my brother Karim!"
The Sultan felt his legs weaken. It had been 5 years since his eldest son had disappeared during a visit to the central market of the capital. 5 years of fruitless searches, sleepless nights, and a guilt that consumed him from within. 5 years in which he had moved heaven and earth, spent untold fortunes, mobilized armies of private investigators, and still, nothing. His son had vanished as if the earth had swallowed him whole. And now, in this humble orphanage on the outskirts of the city, which he had visited out of mere diplomatic formality to inaugurate the new dormitory wing his foundation had funded, his little daughter claimed to have found her lost brother. The boy in question had stepped forward, separating himself from the line of orphans waiting to meet the royal benefactor. His eyes, an unmistakable amber color, the same color he had inherited from his mother, had filled with tears that now rolled freely down his dirty cheeks. His lips trembled as he tried to form words that wouldn't come out. "Amira," the boy finally whispered, and it was as if that name was a key that opened the floodgates of years of contained pain. "Amira, my little Amira." The Sultan felt something break inside his chest. That voice, though deeper, though marked by suffering, it was his son's voice. He knew it with every fiber of his being even before his mind could rationally process it. He took 3 long strides forward, his elaborate royal robes dragging on the dusty ground of the orphanage courtyard, and fell to his knees before the boy. "Karim?" His voice came out as a broken whisper, laden with 5 years of pain, hope, and despair. "Is that you, my son?" The boy nodded, and then the Sultan's tears began to fall. The most powerful man in the kingdom, the leader who had maintained composure during national crises, wars, and tragedies, wept openly before dozens of witnesses. His shoulders shook with sobs that seemed torn from the depths of his soul. "Father," Karim said, and that single word was enough for the Sultan to pull him into a desperate embrace, as if he feared that if he let go, his son would vanish into thin air again. Amira joined the hug, her small arms wrapping around both of them as she cried with happiness. I knew it, she repeated over and over. "I knew it was him. I never forgot his eyes, Dad. I never forgot my brother's eyes." The Sultan's security guards, men trained to maintain professionalism at all times, looked at each other with moist eyes. The orphanage director, Mrs. Fatima, a middle-aged woman with her hair covered by a blue hijab, had her hands to her mouth, unable to believe what she was witnessing. The other children in the orphanage watched the scene with a mixture of awe and confusion. Several minutes passed before the Sultan could pull away enough to truly look at his son. The boy who had disappeared at 5 years old was now a 10-year-old lad, thinner than he should be, with visible scars on his arms and one on his forehead that wasn't there before. His clothes were typical of the orphanage, simple, mended in several places, too large for his skinny body. But his eyes, those amber eyes he had inherited from his late mother, shone with the same intelligence and kindness the Sultan remembered. Where have you been?" the Sultan asked, his voice still trembling as he caressed his son's face, as if he needed to confirm that it was real, that it wasn't a cruel dream. "We searched everywhere for you. I mobilized the entire army, hired the best investigators in the world. How is it possible that you've been here all this time?" Karim swallowed hard. "I haven't been here all this time, Father. Only for the last 6 months." Mrs. Fatima approached timidly, her hands still trembling. "Your Majesty, I had no idea. The boy arrived half a year ago, brought from another orphanage in the northern province. He had no documents. He couldn't remember his last name. He said his name was Karim, but many children arrive here without clear memories, traumatized. I never dreamed it could be." "Tell me everything," the Sultan said, still on his knees, not caring that his elegant robe was getting dusty. "I need to know what happened to you, son. I need to know where you were for these 5 years." Karim took a deep breath, and the Sultan could see how the boy struggled to organize his thoughts, to find the words to describe a hell no child should ever experience. "I remember the market," Karim began, his voice barely audible. "I was with the nanny, Yasmin. She had bought me a pistachio ice cream, my favorite. And then, there was a sudden commotion. People started running in a panic, shouting. I didn't understand what was happening. Yasmin let go of my hand when the crowd pushed us. I tried to find her, but there was so much chaos." The Sultan closed his eyes, remembering that horrible day. Yasmin had been found hours later, injured but alive, in shock. She recovered, but she could never forgive herself for losing Karim. They had assumed the boy had gotten lost in the confusion, perhaps taken by someone, but no ransom demand ever came. "I ran," Karim continued, tears falling again. "I ran aimlessly, trying to escape the crowd. I ended up in streets I didn't know. I was so scared. I walked for hours, trying to find my way back, but I was lost. Everything seemed different, terrifying. When night fell, I was in a part of the city I had never seen before." The Sultan felt pain begin to grip his chest along with guilt. "And then what happened?" "I found other street children," Karim explained. And the maturity in his words was heartbreaking for a child his age. "They took me to a place where they slept, under a bridge. I kept saying I needed to go home, that my father would look for me. But days passed, and no one found me. I started to be afraid to try to go back alone. The city was so big, and I was so small." Karim's voice broke, and the Sultan pulled him close again, wishing he could absorb all the pain his son had suffered. Amira cried silently, clinging to her father's robe. "At first, I told everyone who I was," Karim continued after a moment. "I said my father was the Sultan, that they would come for me. But they laughed. They said all children made up stories, that no one would come for us. After a while, I stopped saying it. People looked at me with pity or distrust. And then I started to doubt myself. So much time passed and no one came. I thought maybe I had dreamed it, that maybe I really was just another orphan. I never stopped looking for you," the Sultan said, his voice broken by emotion. "Not a single day. Never. I lived on the streets for almost a year," Karim continued. "I learned to survive, to find food, to hide when necessary. I made friends among the other lost children. Then, one day, social workers raided the area where we were staying. They picked up many street children. They took us to a temporary shelter in the north. I still couldn't remember my last name. The trauma, the time. It had blocked many things. I only remembered my name, Karim, and that I had a little sister named Amira. But I didn't remember what she looked like, only that she had a laugh like little bells." Amira let out a choked laugh between her tears. "I still have it, brother. I still have it. 6 months ago I was transferred here," Karim continued. "Mrs. Fatima was very kind. She gave me a safe place, food, a bed. It was the first time in years that I felt almost human again, but I never stopped having those dreams, those fragments of memories. A palace with huge gardens, a little girl chasing butterflies, a tall man with a black beard who lifted me onto his shoulders. But I thought they were just fantasies, things my mind invented to escape reality. And then today you arrived," Karim said, looking directly into his father's eyes. "When I saw you enter the courtyard, something inside me stirred. And then I saw Amira, and it was as if a dam broke in my mind. Everything came flooding back. The palace gardens, lessons with tutors, nights when mom sang to me before bed, afternoons flying kites with you on the terrace. Everything." The Sultan couldn't stop crying. He thought of his wife, Sultana Layla, who had died of grief 2 years after Karim's disappearance. The doctors had said it was her heart, but he knew the truth. It had been the pain of losing her son that had killed her. If only she had lived 2 more years, she could have seen this moment. She could have embraced her son again. "Your mother," the Sultan began to say, but the words caught in his throat. Karim nodded slowly, tears falling faster. I know. I feel it in my heart. She's not here anymore, is she? The Sultan shook his head, unable to speak. It was Amira who answered, her little voice clear despite the tears. Mom is in heaven, Karim. But she watches over us from there, and I'm sure she's very happy now, because we finally found you. The scene was so emotional that several of the guards had to turn away to hide their own tears. Mrs. Fatima wept openly, as did the other caregivers at the orphanage. The orphan children watched the scene with a mixture of awe and confusion. The Sultan finally stood up, lifting Karim with him and keeping Amira close. "Let's go home," he declared, his voice regaining some of its usual authority, though still trembling with emotion. "Right now, we're going back to the palace." "Wait, Your Majesty," Mrs. Fatima said, approaching respectfully. "There are procedures, papers to be signed, identity verifications to be made." "The papers can wait," the Sultan said firmly, but not harshly. "My son has waited 5 years to come home. He will not wait another minute. I will send my lawyers tomorrow to handle all the necessary paperwork. And Mrs. Fatima," he added, looking directly at her, "you cared for my son when I could not. I will be eternally grateful to you. This orphanage will receive all the support it needs forever. And every one of these children," he gestured towards the watching orphans, "will be guaranteed a complete education, medical care, and everything necessary for a dignified life. It is the least I can do." Mrs. Fatima bowed deeply. "You are very generous, Your Majesty, and I am infinitely glad that this story has a happy ending. Karim is a good boy. He helped a lot with the younger ones, always sharing his food even when he himself was hungry. He deserves this happiness." Karim blushed at the words of praise, and the Sultan felt his heart swell with pride. Despite all the suffering, despite the years of deprivation, his son had maintained his kindness, his humanity. That spoke of a strength of character that few adults possessed. As they headed to the royal vehicles waiting outside the orphanage, Karim stopped and looked back. "Can I say goodbye?" he asked shyly. "There are some children who have become my friends." "Of course," the Sultan said, moved by his son's consideration for others, even in this emotional moment. Karim ran back to the group of orphans. He hugged several of them, whispering words the Sultan couldn't hear, but which clearly meant a lot to the children. One of them, a small boy no older than 6, clung to Karim and wouldn't let go. "It's okay, Omar," the Sultan heard Karim tell the boy. "You'll be fine. Mrs. Fatima will take care of you. And I promise I'll visit you again, okay? I won't forget you." The boy nodded between sobs and finally let go of Karim. The scene reminded the Sultan that while his story had a miraculous ending, there were dozens of other children in that orphanage, and thousands more throughout the kingdom, who had no one looking for them, no one crying for them. He made a mental note that this had to change. The journey back to the palace was surreal. Karim sat between his father and sister in the back of the royal limousine, looking out the window with wonder as they drove through the city. "It's changed a lot," he murmured. "Or maybe I just didn't remember it well." "Many things have changed," the Sultan said softly. "But the important thing is that we are together again. That's all that matters." When they arrived at the palace, the staff was astonished. The news had spread quickly thanks to the guards who had witnessed the scene at the orphanage. And when the Sultan crossed the main gates with Karim by the hand, there was a crowd of servants, advisors, and court members waiting, all with tears in their eyes. The head butler, an elderly man named Hassan who had served the royal family for 40 years, fell to his knees when he saw Karim. "Prince Karim," he said with a trembling voice. "Thank God. Thank Almighty God." Karim seemed overwhelmed by all the attention, stepping back slightly towards his father. The Sultan perceived that his son needed time to adjust, to process everything that was happening. "Everyone is very happy to see you," he gently explained to Karim. "But I understand if it's too much now. Do you want to go to your room? It's exactly as you left it." Karim's eyes lit up with surprise. "You kept it?" "Every day for 5 years someone cleaned and cared for your room," the Sultan said. "I never lost hope that you would come home." They ascended the marble stairs to the royal chambers wing. When the Sultan opened the door to Karim's room, the boy stood motionless in the doorway. Everything was exactly as he remembered it. The sky blue painted walls, the four-poster bed decorated with golden stars, the shelves full of books and toys, the telescope by the window overlooking the gardens. Karim entered slowly, touching things with reverence, as if he feared they would disappear. He stopped before a framed photograph on his nightstand. The complete family, taken 6 months before his disappearance. His mother, beautiful and smiling, held little Amira. Karim stood next to his father, with a huge smile showing the gap where he had lost a milk tooth. "We were so happy," Karim whispered, taking the photograph with trembling hands. "I didn't know how lucky I was." "And we will be happy again," the Sultan promised, kneeling beside his son. "I know terrible things have happened. I know you have suffered in ways no child should suffer. But you are safe now. You are home. And I will do everything in my power to help you heal." That night, the Sultan ordered a banquet to be prepared, but Karim asked for something simpler. Could we just have dinner, the three of us?" he asked shyly. "You, Amira, and me, like a normal family." The Sultan's heart melted. "Of course, son. Whatever you wish." They dined in the family's private dining room, a smaller, more intimate space than the grand banquet hall. The chef had prepared all of Karim's favorite dishes from years ago, but the boy ate slowly, almost shyly, as if he wasn't accustomed to so much food. Amira chattered happily, telling her brother everything he had missed: her riding lessons, their new puppy, palace parties, her school friends. Karim listened attentively, smiling at his sister's enthusiasm, though the Sultan could see the sadness in his eyes as he realized all he had lost. After dinner, Amira insisted that Karim see her room, which had been redecorated twice since his disappearance. As the children explored, the Sultan retired to his study, where he finally allowed the magnitude of what had happened to fully hit him. His son was alive. After 5 years of desperate searching, unbearable pain, and dark nights of the soul where he had contemplated giving up, his son had come home. It was a miracle, pure and simple. But along with the joy came guilt. Guilt for not having been able to protect Karim in the first place. Guilt for not having found him sooner. Guilt for all the horrors his son had to endure while he slept in his comfortable palace bed. Guilt for not having searched the orphanages earlier, for having assumed more sinister scenarios. A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he said, quickly wiping his eyes. It was Karim, still dressed in the simple orphanage clothes, looking small and lost in the frame of the large oak door. "Can I come in?" he asked uncertainly. "Always," the Sultan said, opening his arms. Karim ran to him, and the Sultan hugged him tightly. "Can't you sleep?" "I'm scared," Karim admitted softly. "I'm afraid that if I fall asleep, when I wake up all this will have been a dream, that I'll be back in the orphanage, or worse, back on the streets." The Sultan's heart broke. "It's not a dream, son. You are home, and here you will stay. No one will ever hurt you again. I promise." Can I stay here with you tonight?" Karim asked. "Like when I was little and had nightmares." "Nothing would make me happier," the Sultan replied, his voice hoarse with emotion. That night, Sultan Rashid Al-Mansour, leader of millions, slept on a sofa in his study with his 10-year-old son, curled up against him, exactly as they used to do years ago. And for the first time in 5 years, he slept soundly, without the nightmares that had tormented him since Karim's disappearance. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. Doctors examined Karim, finding evidence of chronic malnutrition, some old scars, and signs that he had lived in very difficult conditions. Psychologists began gentle therapy sessions, helping him process the trauma. News of the lost prince's return spread throughout the kingdom like wildfire. People wept with joy in the streets. A national holiday was declared. But the Sultan fiercely protected his son's privacy, limiting public appearances and refusing to give interviews. "He needs time to heal," he explained to his advisors. "He is not a spectacle for public entertainment. He is a child who has suffered unimaginable horrors and needs peace to recover." But the Sultan also kept his promise. He mobilized security forces to intensify programs for the protection of lost and vulnerable children. With Karim's experience, they implemented new search and rescue protocols. They created a national system for identifying and locating missing children. Dozens of street children were rescued and placed in safe homes. And the orphanage where Karim had been found received a complete transformation. New buildings, better facilities, more trained staff, first-class educational programs. Mrs. Fatima was appointed regional director of all orphanages in the kingdom, with a generous budget to implement reforms throughout the system. But most importantly, little Omar, the boy who had clung to Karim at their farewell, was adopted by a loving family who had been inspired by the story of the lost prince. Karim insisted on meeting the family before the adoption and visited Omar regularly. Months passed. Karim began to smile more easily, to laugh more often. The nightmares didn't disappear, but they became less frequent. He returned to his studies, though he had to catch up on 5 years of lost education. He showed fierce determination, studying late into the night, as if he wanted to make up for all the lost time. One afternoon, 6 months after his return, the Sultan found Karim in the palace gardens, in the same place where they used to fly kites together years ago. The boy gazed at the sky, lost in thought. "What are you thinking about, son?" the Sultan asked, sitting beside him on the grass. "About all the other children," Karim replied after a moment. "The ones you helped rescue, the ones still in orphanages, the ones who might never find their families. I was lucky, father. I had someone looking for me, someone who never gave up. But what about those who have no one?" The Sultan looked at his son with a mixture of pride and admiration. After all he had suffered, after having been a victim of so much cruelty, Karim still thought of others, still cared for those less fortunate. "What do you propose?" the Sultan asked, knowing his son had something in mind. "I want to help," Karim said with determination. "When I grow up, I want to work with orphanages, with children rescued from the streets. I want to make sure no child feels as alone and forgotten as I did. I want to be their voice, their advocate." The Sultan felt tears in his eyes again, but this time they were tears of pride. "You will be a great leader someday, Karim. Better than I have been." "Don't say that," Karim protested. "You never gave up. You never stopped looking for me. That's what a great leader does. Never abandon his people, no matter how long it takes, no matter how difficult it is." Father and son sat in silence, watching the sun set over the palace gardens, and the Sultan knew that although the lost years could never be recovered, although the scars, both physical and emotional, would always remain, his family had been blessed with a new beginning. That night, during family dinner, Amira announced that she had written a story for school about a lost prince who finds his way back home. "Do you want to hear it?" she asked excitedly. "Of course," Karim and the Sultan said in unison, as Amira read her story in an animated voice. The Sultan looked at his 2 children and felt a peace he hadn't experienced in years. His family was incomplete without Layla, and always would be. But they were together, they were healing, and they were looking towards the future with hope. The cry that had broken years of silence in that orphanage had been the beginning of a new story, a story of reunion, redemption, and unbreakable love. And although the road ahead would not be easy, they would walk it together as a family. Years later, when Prince Karim became a young adult, he established a foundation dedicated to the protection of vulnerable children, the rehabilitation of street children, and the reform of the orphanage system. He became a powerful voice for those who had no voice, using his own experience to inspire real and lasting change. And every year, on the anniversary of the day he was found, Karim visited the orphanage where his sister had recognized him. He spoke with the children, gave them hope, reminded them that they were not forgotten, that they mattered. Because he knew, better than anyone, the power of a single cry that breaks the silence. The power of a sister who never forgot her brother's eyes. The power of a father who never stopped searching. And the power of hope that refuses to die, even in the deepest darkness. The story of the Sultan who cried in public, of the lost prince who came home, became a legend in the kingdom. But for the Al-Mansour family, it was not a legend. It was their reality, their miracle, their second chance. And never, Not for a single day did they take that blessing for granted.